I'm Nathan Ponchard, this is Chasing Cars, and this is the Kia Seltos GT-Line.
Something that people don't give Kia credit for is that the Korean brand was actually at the forefront of the modern small SUV when they launched the original Sportage more than 25 years ago. But it has taken them all of this time to come up with another SUV that sits underneath that car, and that SUV is the Seltos. Now, it's no surprise, being part of the greater Hyundai Motor Group, that the Kia Seltos is actually closely related to the Hyundai Kona, although this is a bigger SUV than that car. It has a 30mm longer wheelbase, but it's actually more than 200mm longer. So it puts the Seltos into an interesting niche in the small SUV category, and that it is almost as big as some of the medium SUVs above it and significantly larger than many of its competitors. Now, underneath, the mechanicals of the Seltos are exactly the same as the Konas and very closely related to the Cerato hatch and sedan that it also shares mechanicals with. But this car, and in particular this variant here, the GT-Line, has a 1.6 litre turbocharged direct injection engine and all-wheel drive, and that's something that you can't get on a normal Cerato. How do we tell it's a GT-Line? Well, at the front here, among all of this grillage, is full LED headlights. Now at the top here we have a DRL that runs almost to the center here, and we have LED blinkers and LED fog lights. So at night time, this thing kind of looks like an electronic set of Oakley blades. As we move around to the side here, we have 18-inch wheels, which are oddly almost identical design to the 17-inch wheels in the two models below it. And in this case, most obviously, we have a no-cost option cherry black roof. Now this black roof takes place of the sunroof, so if you want a sunroof, you can't have this. It's also only available on the metallic yellow and the pearl white. I don't think it looks that great on this car, but I think it looks really good on the white one. As we move around to the back here, we have all of this cladding down the side, which is shared with many of the other models, as well as all of this excess of silver here, which you can only hope gets deleted out in the first facelift. But we also have LED rear tail lights here, and at night time again, these add a look of expense to the Seltos GT-Line that kind of partly goes, visually at least, some way towards justifying how much it costs. In the boot here, what you also get is a full-size 18-inch alloy spare, but you also lose quite a bit in floor height. In fact, it's almost a handspan higher than what it is in only the base S with a space saver spare. And while this is still 433 litres and pretty good, it's nowhere near as good as the 498 in the base car, if you can believe Kia's literage. And I feel like it takes a little bit away from what the Seltos has as a benefit over its competitors. That said, this is four-wheel drive and it does have a full-size spare. So if you do some light off-roading, which it'd be capable of, then peace of mind. Fleshing out the GT-Line's top spec billing is a bunch of stuff in the interior that actually makes it feel a little bit special. Front and center is this 10.25-inch touchscreen that it shares with the models below it, but in this case, it pumps through 8 Bose speakers, which are strong and punchy and have plenty of bass, but not quite as sophisticated as you might think in their sound quality. That said, the functionality of this screen, especially with Apple CarPlay, although it does need a cord, is really good, and it does make the GT-Line feel like it's worth $42,990 drive away, which is what Kia's asking for it right now. I suppose there's a few other things here that do make the car feel special. It has a head-up display that shows the speed limit, details of the cruise control, whether you've got lane assist on, that sort of stuff. And you have another little screen here that's broader than the models below it and gives you more information, although the speedo in this one is just this tiny little nub on the right, whatever. Kia does say the GT-Line also has premium artificial leather seats, but I can't think of any time since the 60s when vinyl has actually been premium. So it's lucky that this car also has fan cooling, because your bum is going to sweat on these things in summer. So we've got a 3-speed cooler, 3-speed heater, and we've got a heated steering wheel. So some of that does make up for the fact that the trim in this car isn't really that great. In fact, the deeper you look, the more you realize that the Seltos is actually an economy car. It has this stitching on the dash here, but it's just plastic. The carpet on the floor, I reckon you could probably sandpaper stuff with it. It's really rough. You'd get knee burn if you fell over on that thing. And the back seat passengers are going to have to suffer the same trim, but without the cooling. As for other features in here, we have a sliding center front armrest, which is quite cool. We have a USB plug down here. with another USB hidden behind a flap, a 12-volt outlet, and wireless phone charging shelf under here. But I suppose the most important thing about the Seltos' interior, in my opinion, is that it actually looks cohesive. This interior has an element of class that kind of transcends some of those aspects of cheap materials and not so great carpet. And you have a really good driving position. You sit high with the wheels smack bang in front of you. In fact, you sit higher in this than you do in the cloth seat base model, which may be to some people's taste and not others, although it does have full electric seat adjustment, and that might be why. I also like the design of the speaker grills on the doors, which have this kind of topographic, lumpy treatment that even the base car has, and it just adds a little bit of a point of difference to a car that is essentially much like any other Kia inside. So jumping in the back, one of the other Seltos' really great points is rear seat room, and I can only think of one other small SUV that can match it, and it's the Honda HR-V, but I actually think this is a little bit more comfortable. We're sitting in this seat here that's got great under thigh support. I've got an awesome view ahead. In fact, I can see completely over the headrest in front of me, and that's just something that so many other cars this competes against can't do. It's also something that the Serato can't do, which doesn't have a very comfortable back seat, and you find you're kind of sitting there splayed out, whereas here, if you want to splay out, you can do it with the backrest, which actually has 3 positions and goes to here. You could even sleep in this thing and be comfortable. Now we also have a center armrest here with 2 cup holders. We've got dual center air vents. We've got a USB port here, a little tray here, 1 map pocket, but it's better than nothing, although who uses maps, and a drink bottle holder in the door, although they're a little bit kind of ironic like the front where you shove it in at a weird angle, but it will take a 1 litre water bottle, and that's something that's kind of unusual for a Korean car because usually it's 600 mils or nothing. Now, like most Kias for the past 10 years, the Seltos has a unique Australian suspension tune, and for that reason it actually drives really well on our roads. The thing is that the Seltos range is actually a tale of 2 halves. You have the entry-level cars with a 2-litre naturally aspirated engine and front-wheel drive and quite a supple ride, fairly heavy steering, and you have the GT line and the model below it, which also have fairly heavy steering, but all-wheel drive, a 1.6-litre turbo engine, and probably a better balance in terms of the dynamics versus the performance. The standard car drives really well up to a point until it starts to get a little bit ragged, whereas this GT line is actually really impressive right to the end of its dynamic envelope. That said, it doesn't have the comfort of the standard car. It just gets better the faster you go, and that's great, but for a lot of the time and for a lot of what the people that buy this car are going to want, I think that the regular front drive Seltos is actually a better, suaver and sweeter car to drive. I don't think that the turbo engine offers a huge amount of performance benefit from the one below it either, although it does hang on in corners, as we just proved, and these Kumho Extras, while they are quite noisy on a coarse chip surface, they do grip pretty well. I suppose it's that noise on coarse roads that does start to undermine, and that, the engine. Like at the top end, it is just intrusive and uninspiring. Below about 5,000 RPM, it's fine, but it's meant to be a performance engine, isn't it? 8 seconds 0 to 100, and that top end, much like this engine and all the other Hyundais and Kias that it's used in to varying degrees, is just not a performance engine. It actually works really well in Eco, which is the mode I've got it in now, where it channels the 265 Newton meters it has from 1500 to 4500 RPM and does a really good job of doing that. I also don't think that the 7-speed dual clutch, which is Hyundai Kia's own transmission, is as suave in terms of the way that it drives as their really quite impressive CVT transmission in the normal 2-litre. And so the combination of all that is of a car that just isn't quite as polished as you'd want it to be. That said, I can see why someone might want to have a GT line. It does have a usable level of performance, and in particular the all-wheel drive on these 18-inch wheels has an excellent level of road holding and grip. It also has a 4-wheel drive lock mode down here, which locks the on-demand 4-wheel drive into 4-wheel drive, but I don't think that's going to go very far, and certainly not on these 235, 45, 18-inch summer tyres. This is not an off-road car. It just happens to have all-wheel drive. Complementing the all-wheel drive's grip is steering that's actually really quite precise. It doesn't have a whole lot of feel, and so the Australian tune does add quite a lot of weight to it to try and make it feel like it's doing something good, but you know where you're pointing this car. And it also has all of those active safety systems to back that up, which are available on every model, but they're all standard on the GT line, like lane keep assist and AB with pedestrian and cyclist protection and steering assist when you're on the freeway. It also has adaptive cruise, although much like the adaptive cruise in many Korean cars, it is overly sensitive when it shouldn't be. It sometimes snags on other cars and bits of road furniture, which you wish it wouldn't, and it doesn't really hold the speed with the level of perfection that you would want to expect in a car in 2020. It'll drop speed on hills and it'll overrun on the other side, but hey, you know, it keeps you in a lane. So the Seltos as a car absolutely makes sense. It's a bit bigger than the norm for its size. It has terrific rear seat room. It has great vision. It has plenty of stuff for the money. And it's a Kia, so it has a 7-year warranty, 7-year roadside assist, and 7-year cap price servicing. But when we get to the GT line, it's starting to enter dangerous territory. This is still a small SUV, albeit a turbocharged four-wheel drive one, that is almost the same price as the top spec of some rival medium SUVs like Subaru Forester 2.5 IS. Now the Subaru is a larger car than the Kia, it is more sophisticated, it is more refined and offers more equipment than this car for virtually the same money. I think the sweet spot in the Seltos lineup is not here in turbocharged all-wheel drive territory. It is with either the base model, adding alloy wheels to that car so it doesn't look so povo, but having all of that extra boot space with a space saver and relying on the entry-level engine to do almost as well as what this car does with greater efficiency and like a $15,000 saving. So yeah, the Seltos GT line is a good car, but it's not the best Seltos you can buy. If you haven't subscribed, please do so below the video, hit the notification bell and leave a comment on the Kia Seltos GT line or on Chasing Cars. Thanks for watching.